I used to be a school counselor. And if you've ever seen me perform live and you know what my stand-up's like, you think that's two totally different personalities. 98% of the kids I loved. Like, I just couldn't help it. I just loved my kids. They were my kids. But there's always this one kid a year that I would be like, I am going to have to dig so deep down to find the likable quality of this child. Because you're not going to love everybody. You're not going to love every kid. You're not going to love every guest. You're not going to love every person you meet, right? But my job was, as a counselor, was to help these kids. A lot of times, I'm not going to lie, when I picked up the phone to call the parent, I realized why I didn't like the kid. That kid wasn't born with all those inherent qualities to be bad or to misbehave. A lot of those things were caused chemically or environmentally, and I had to find the good in that kid, and I would find it. I read this thing online the other day, and it said, kids are resilient. And I thought, yeah, kids are resilient, but then we spent our adulthood in therapy. Cawfee Talk. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci. Hope you're having a great morning. I don't know when you guys are listening to this. Usually I say morning, but sometimes you guys message me and say, oh, I just got home from work and I'm listening to your podcast. So whatever time of day it is, I hope it was a good day. Today, this is a solo episode, so you know I like to get a little raw and honest with you guys. And I wanted to talk to you guys about something that happened to me recently. Well, first of all, the episode will probably have already passed at this point, and you guys will have seen that I have different guests on, from people who have been reality TV stars or other fellow comedians. I love having comics on, and singers, songwriters. I have doctors coming on. I have very interesting people. I think that everybody brings something to the table. And I recently had a guest, and I got instantly nervous that perhaps, we're living in a time right now where and my audience hates when I say this. I have said this like in a video, like joking, like, hey, don't cancel me. I'm eating vegan pizza. And people like, stop saying cancel. We wouldn't cancel you. There's a real like anti-cancel culture going on right now. And I know that a lot of my fans subscribe to that. But I do worry sometimes because let me tell you something right now. It doesn't make a difference what side you vote on. Everybody feels like they have the right to tell you that they don't like what you're doing and they're gonna, not follow you or not support you. People have a voice everywhere now. And listen, a lot of you guys use it for good, but sometimes it's really hurtful. And it's really hurtful online. And I find myself in this constant state of like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to put something out that you guys aren't going to like. Guess what? And I love what I do. It's kind of like tough shit. What I'm basically trying to do between this podcast, is finding the good in everything, in the ugly parts of my life, in my past. Coming from a family of addicts, I get on stage, I joke about it. Being so raw and honest on these podcasts and telling you guys certain stories of my grandmother having dementia and what that was like growing up. And so the same goes for when I have a guest. Listen, there could be a public persona and we can judge people. Obviously, we're going to know what people do in their lives and we're going to make a judgment call. That's fine. I'm completely okay with that. People are going to put out things and they're going to have to accept the feedback that comes with it. However, I think everybody has a story. And I honestly think if I didn't have so much trauma in my own personal life from my childhood on, that it probably wouldn't have made me so funny. And it probably wouldn't have made me so empathetic. And so on today's Cawfee Talk, I'm just getting a little real and honest with you guys about the fact that I feel like, and it's you can see this quote online, so many people post it. It's like, you never know what somebody's going through. You should always show them kindness. And so when I bring a guest into the podcast studio, it's because even though I'm a Sicilian from the Bronx and maybe I don't trust everybody and it takes a lot for me to earn your trust, I still believe in giving everybody a shot. And I still believe that everybody has a story and that the majority of people act in ways as adults because of the trauma or the, things that they went through in their life. I read this thing online the other day, and it said, kids are resilient. And I thought, yeah, kids are resilient, but then we spent our adulthood in therapy. So I think resilient, immediately kids are resilient, but I think there are long-term effects to everything that we go through in life. And when I invite a guest here, I am always going to try and find the positive and the light in something, in everything that's, in one thing about them. What I'll say about my past, and I've mentioned it briefly on the podcast before, is I used to be a school counselor. And if you've ever seen me perform live and you know what my stand-up's like, you think that's two totally different personalities. But at the end of the day, there would always be a kid every year. I mean, when I tell you, I worked in an elementary school for 16 years in the South Bronx. And then I went to middle school to follow those kids for a couple more years after that. And 98% of the kids I loved. Like, I just couldn't help it. I just loved my kids. They were my kids. But there's always this one kid a year that I would be like, I am going to have to dig so deep down to find the likable quality of this child. Because you're not going to love everybody. You're not going to love every kid. You're not going to love every guest. You're not going to love every person you meet, right? But my job as a counselor was to help these kids. And if I didn't vibe with a kid, I would go through so many different channels to find the one likable quality. And listen, a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, when I picked up the phone to call the parent, I realized why I didn't like the kid. Okay? That kid wasn't born fucked up, basically. It wasn't born with all those inherent qualities to be bad or to misbehave, because I don't even like to say to be bad. A lot of those things were caused chemically or environmentally, and I had to find the good in that kid, and I would find it. I don't know, it didn't happen right away. Sometimes it was almost 9 to 10 months into the school year, which was close to the end, but I found it. And I think that is something I'm never going to want to stop doing in life. I can joke about it. I'm going to make fun of people. I'm going to find people's insecurities. I just brought up people on stage that were missing fingers. And I brought them on stage to display their disability. And I sat there and laughed at it. I had another guy bring up his disability card on stage because he wouldn't stop talking. Of course I want to poke fun of it. But there's a really fine line between poking fun and being mean. And I think that sometimes as a society, we're all just a little too mean. Making fun of somebody to the point where it's funny, yeah, that's the business I'm in. I'm never going to get offended by that. But being nervous that I can't joke about things or I can't have somebody sit next to me and learn their story is not a world I want to live in. It's not a podcast I want to produce. Okay? When I started Cawfee Tawk, it was because Joey Diaz called me one day and was like, there's a bunch of funny people, a bunch of funny comics that can't sell tickets, Tara. You got to show people who you really are. People got to know who you are. Who are they coming to see? He's like, people got to get babysitters to come see your shows. People got to leave their house. People got to spend money. What are you giving them? And I always want to be as raw and authentic, as funny as I can. But I'm also kind, and I'm interested in people and human behavior. And that's kind of why I started this podcast. It was more to just be honest with you guys, and I'm kind of finding my rhythm with it now. At first I was just talking about things that helped me, and then I was bringing guests on, and then I started talking about, growing up and the home that I grew up in and the neighborhood I grew up in and what some of my fears are and problems with fertility, and I'm bringing it all. Every week, I'm always trying to connect with you guys on some level. So if I have a guest that you don't like or you can't connect with, you never have to watch the episode. You can skip it, or you can send me, watch the next episode. But let's not quit on each other. Let's not be so quick to judge. I'm not saying that any of you have done that. I am presuming such things on this podcast episode today. But I thought in my fear and in my anxiety, it would be maybe a really good time to just have a podcast episode on it. So with that said, guys, I hope you have a great week. I hope that if you take away anything from this episode, it's that we are all probably going through something, right? Sometimes I respond in a way that person doesn't deserve, and it's probably just me fixating on something else that I'm anxious about. So I just wanted to bring that. I wanted to bring that to the coffee table this morning. Guys, if you want to come to a show, this wasn't that funny of an episode. I know that sometimes you guys hit me up, but the majority of the times I'm being funny and saying some crazy word but this was just a real, honest, raw talk. So let me know how you like it. I'm not going to be serious all of the time, but it's just something I kind of wanted to talk about because I was feeling a little nervous. And you guys are my therapy, right? I can't afford to produce this show and go to therapy. So you guys were this for me this week. I hope I was that for you this week. Go on my website, tarajokes.com, to see me. I promise I will be funny. Have a great day, everybody. Cawfee Talk.